difficultés s'adapte à cet enfant, puis c'est ça la définition de l'inclusion. Les difficultés sont énormes et on sent des blocages, que ce soit du point de vue financier, administratif, mais aussi encore malheureusement dans les mentalités.
Reconnaissez-vous tout de même des avancées? Constatez-vous tout de même des avancées?
Alors j'imagine qu'il y a des avancées. Moi, je n'ai pas connu l'univers, on va dire, du handicap avant la naissance de ma fille. Elle n'a que 6 ans, donc je peux pas comparer, mais tout le monde me le dit. Et c'est vrai que la France et le système scolaire français vient de très très loin. Donc oui, il y en a forcément des avancées quand on arrive de très très loin. Mais il y a encore, comme le disaient vos 2 invités, il y a encore vraiment beaucoup d'efforts à faire avant qu'on puisse vraiment parler d'école inclusive et puis que les parents aient moins à subir justement cette charge et toutes ces difficultés, quoi.
Vous l'avez dit, Louise bénéficie d'une aide humaine, d'une accompagnante, d'une AESH pendant 15 heures sur les 24 heures hebdomadaires, oui, d'école. Donc charge à la maîtresse seule de se débrouiller le reste du temps. Est-ce qu'elle y arrive?
Écoutez, c'est très compliqué. Enfin, elle y arrive, notamment parce que Louise est en maternelle et qu'il y a aussi dans sa classe, elle a la chance d'avoir aussi en plus une aide saine. Et puis aussi, elle y arrive parce que nous, parents, on s'est arrangé pour que certaines des prises en charge de Louise, psychomotricité, kiné, se fassent à l'école quand l'AVS n'est pas là. Ce qui permet de s'occuper aussi de Louise. Mais bon, en fait, depuis que Louise est entrée en école maternelle, on demande pour elle et aussi pour ses enseignantes qu'elle ait un temps plein d'aide humaine et ça nous a toujours été refusé.
C'était ma question suivante. Est-ce que vous savez pourquoi? Pourquoi on refuse d'accorder à Louise davantage d'heures pour l'accompagner dans sa scolarité?
Alors, il y a 9 heures comme ça. On n'a jamais compris vraiment pourquoi, puisque en fait, quand il y a des décisions de la part de la MDPH comme ça, elles ne sont pas forcément motivées, ou alors on vous dit que Louise n'a pas besoin de plus parce qu'elle a déjà un peu d'autonomie, etc. Et puis surtout, on nous a fait comprendre en off un peu, de façon officieuse, que si Louise avait besoin de plus d'heures d'aide humaine, ça signifiait qu'elle avait peut-être pas sa place dans l'école et qu'il fallait penser à autre chose. Donc c'est un peu violent à entendre ça.
C'est violent et c'est une façon de détourner complètement la question, en réalité.
Oui, exactement.
De quoi rêvez-vous pour l'école de demain, Caroline Boudet?
Écoutez, je rêve d'une école inclusive. Évidemment, mais à mon avis, ça passerait déjà par, on a beaucoup parlé des effectifs de classe, et ça, je pense que pour tous les enfants, et donc y compris les enfants en situation de handicap, si on divisait les effectifs de classe par 2, ça serait vraiment plus simple pour tout le monde. Et je rêve d'une école où, dans les faits et pas que dans les textes, un enfant avec un handicap aurait sa place tout naturellement en classe, et où ce qui veut dire que ça ne demanderait pas aux parents de se battre, parce que c'est le terme qui revient tout le temps. On a vraiment l'impression encore de se battre. Ça va pas de soi, quoi.
Est-ce que vous êtes en colère contre ce système?
Oui, je suis déçue et en colère, oui, un mélange des deux, mais je pense que la déception est encore plus forte parce que j'ai grandi et j'ai dans un grand respect pour l'école publique et je trouve que c'est une institution extrêmement importante, donc je suis surtout déçue de découvrir que quand on est du côté des enfants qui sont pas dans la norme, cette école, elle ressemble beaucoup à une machine à exclure.
Dans votre livre, les mots sont durs, hein. Les mots sont très très durs. Dans votre livre, L'effet Louise, vous parlez de cette vie en noir et blanc, faite de paperasserie. Quels sont ces moments quand même en couleur, et j'espère qu'il y en a, vécus par Louise grâce à l'école ou au sein de l'école?
Alors, il y en a plein, parce que au quotidien, en tout cas, Louise déjà ne vit pas tout cet aspect-là qui est lourd peut-être pour nous. Elle adore aller à l'école. Je peux vous assurer quand on l'entend.
Drink, Mr. Dollar?
No, thanks. I suppose
I got anything you want to drink? An eggnog, hot buttered rum?
Well, maybe later. Right now, I'd like to hear the details of your loss.
That insurance agent didn't give you all the information?
He didn't know it all, Mr. Gillis. All he did know is that a so-called talented mouse has disappeared.
So-called. He hasn't disappeared either, not at all. He's been kidnapped, that's right. Kidnapped. Yes, sir, and we know who did it. And why. We know why, too. And it's your job to get him back, though.
Oh, now, wait a minute.
And I'm not going to pay one red cent for ransom. Not 1 cent, not 1 cent.
Okay. But what makes you so sure the mouse was kidnapped?
And tell you that without Bert's permission.
Well, Mr. Glazer?
Well, if we tell you, we must have your solemn promise you won't repeat it to anybody until Christmas Day.
Well, I'm not sure I can do that.
If you can't, we don't open our mouth. Right. Well,
okay. Till Christmas Day.
Good. Gulliver, suppose I told you Gulliver was worth at least $50,000.
Gulliver?
The missing mouse.
Oh.
You'd be surprised if I said he was worth that much?
Depends. You claim he's talented. Does that have something to do with this valuation you put on him?
Something? It has everything to do with it. Yes, sir.
Well, what does Gulliver do that other mice can't?
Nothing. But it's how he does it that counts.
How he does what?
Sings.
What?
Can't you hear the man, Mr. Can't you hear him? Gulliver sings. He carries a tune. You know, with the clarity of a clarion, the fervor of a female opera star, and the tone of a tenor. That's how we plan to bill him.
I see.
But he doesn't believe us.
Oh, no, wait. I didn't say that.
You need to. We can tell by your face. Can't we, Bert?
But a mouse.
This fellow. It is a scientific fact that mice sing. Mice sing. Well-known magazines have published articles proving it. Unfortunately, most of them sing in a scale too high for human hearing. That's not Gulliver.
Not Gulliver.
Yeah, that's right. He's a basso. A basso? By mousy standards, that is. Oh, no. No, Bert, he still doesn't believe us. Very well, Jediah, there is only one thing to do. Only one thing to do. You follow us, Dollar. We'll erase the doubt in your mind forever.
I took a good look at Bert Glazer, then reluctantly followed the two of them out of the library and down a long hall.
Job.
That's true.
I have no order right now like it.
Plus, there's nothing impressive about Rogers Center anymore.
No, it's.
I mean, you look at the.
I love it, but it's a dump.
Yeah, and if the team's a dump as well, and they've only pulled in 15,000 spectators, it kind of looks sad.
What is
They're going to do well this year.
I think so. Well, fingers crossed.
Roger.
Let's take our first look at the roads.
Oh,
The calm before the storm, to use the cliche, because I know she loves it. It is 5:43.
Shut up. It's going to snow like a foot.
Pour citer quelques noms de la quarantaine d'artistes qui sont à l'affiche de cette édition. Vous êtes aussi vice-président du comité festival du Prodis, le syndicat national du spectacle musical et de variété, et vous avez rendez-vous avec Roselyne Bachelot cet après-midi. Qu'allez-vous lui dire à votre ministre?
D'abord, je pense qu'on va l'écouter, parce que c'est bien ça le format de cette deuxième rencontre. On a déjà eu un échange riche, fructueux et j'allais dire apaisé le 29 janvier dernier. Là, il s'agit de maintenant déterminer les choses, comme le rappelait Yann Bertrand dans le sujet précédent. Il y a des délais qu'on ne peut plus tenir, et c'est pas une...
Well, King, most of us have taken a bad driver's license picture. Leslie Pilgrim of Sacramento was surprised to get a new license featuring a photo of her wearing a face mask. Pilgrim says she'd been vigilant not to remove her mask too early at the DMV, a good intention that backfired. The ID is valid, but DMV officials say they'll have her return to take a more conventionally disappointing photo.
What fucking difference does it make at this point? When they pull her over, she's going to be wearing a mask, Probably, maybe.
And from the Wallace Foundation, working to develop and share practices that can improve learning and enrichment for young people and the vitality of the arts for everyone. Ideas and information at wallacefoundation.org. And from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, supporting...
For today and save for tomorrow. Working together, we'll build a plan and add investment solutions along the...
How quickly can I roll it? I know why.
Des emplois, je pense évidemment aux intermittents du spectacle qui ont vraiment pas besoin de ça, mais je n'accuse personne en disant ça. Il y a une situation, on doit y faire face. comme le rappelait Jérôme Trérouel dans votre reportage, on a su s'adapter à maintes reprises, notamment sur la sécurité après la vague d'attentats et notamment de Bataclan. On est responsable, on est professionnel. On fait un métier sans se prendre au sérieux, de manière sérieuse, pour paraphraser certains intervenants. Donc voilà.
Vous avez un protocole sanitaire prêt, vous dites on pourrait le faire.
Non, je ne dis pas ça. Je dis que moi, j'attends une décision maintenant, que le gouvernement prenne ses responsabilités, que la ministre de la Culture nous dise oui ou non, on peut jouer debout ou pas. Et à partir de là, j'aurai une réflexion. Je vois difficilement comment je pourrais présenter, par exemple, mon festival, mais c'est valable pour beaucoup d'autres, en version dégradée, c'est devenu un mot usuel dans les discussions qu'on a. J'aime pas bien ce mot, mais il veut dire quelque chose aussi. Moi, et puis je m'interroge sur la pertinence du assis avec certaines esthétiques musicales. Je pense à des festivals électro, pop, rock, de musique urbaine. Nous, dans le cadre de Musilac, on a une programmation qui est extrêmement variée, sur un spectre large. Mais comment contenir même que 5000 personnes, si c'était ça, en assis, quand ils vont vouloir danser, etc. C'est très très bizarre. Je crois qu'il faut être prudent aussi là-dessus. Moi, j'attends beaucoup de ce rendez-vous de 16h aujourd'hui, et à partir de là, on prendra nos responsabilités.
Est-ce que vous attendez aussi beaucoup de ces expérimentations de concerts qui arrivent à Paris et Marseille? Vous vous dites, ça va dans le bon sens, ça?
Oui, absolument. Le Prodis est acteur du projet parisien. On est farouchement au travail sur cette expérimentation scientifique. C'est indispensable et ça peut nous aider à imaginer en tout cas des jours meilleurs et un retour peut-être en plusieurs étapes, je ne sais pas, j'allais dire à la normale. Donc c'est primordial. Hélas, la temporalité fait que ça ne sauvera pas des festivals qui ne pourraient pas jouer en version assise.
Votre billetterie pour le festival Musilac est ouverte. Est-ce que vous avez des ventes tout de même? Est-ce que vous avez de futurs festivaliers qui achètent?
Entre ceux qui ont conservé leur billet d'édition de l'été dernier, qui a évidemment été annulé, et ceux qui ont racheté, on a environ...
Pour malvoyants, malentendants, sont transformés en quelque sorte en centre de ressources et elles accueillent des enfants valides ou avec d'autres types de handicaps, mais ça ne constitue pas vraiment une avancée vers l'inclusion telle qu'elle est comprise. Parce que là, il a évoqué la question du financement et les financements par les partenaires, et le jour où les partenaires ne seront plus là, qu'est-ce qui va se passer? Donc, l'idée, c'est que l'éducation, le droit à l'éducation, il soit valable et applicable pour tous les enfants et qu'on avance vers la conception universelle de l'éducation, c'est-à-dire que les systèmes d'éducation pensés de manière à recueillir tout type de public avec des besoins diversifiés.
Dans les besoins de ces enfants, on l'a dit, il y a l'aide humaine. Tous les enfants n'en ont pas besoin, mais beaucoup. Cette année, en France, 220 000 enfants sont accompagnés par une AESH. Cette année, c'est très particulier puisque ces accompagnants sont en colère, véritablement. Il y a eu un changement dans l'organisation, dans l'attribution de leur travail. Il y a eu une mutualisation aussi de leur travail. Comment vous voyez le travail de ces AESH, Ernestine Gomela?
Dans un article, dans une interview que j'avais accordée à 20 minutes il y a 1 ou 2 ans, justement, je parlais de la situation des AESH et des AVS. À l'époque, c'était une situation un peu complexe parce qu'ils n'avaient pas de statut particulier et leur contrat étaient des contrats de courte durée, donc à tout moment, ils pouvaient s'en aller ou ils pouvaient ne pas être retenus. Et il y a l'autre volet aussi, c'est que les parents remontent parfois la question, le problème de la mise en place de l'accompagnement justement par l'AVS. Une fois que le dossier est validé par la MDPH, il se coule un temps avant la mise en place effective de cet accompagnement. Et les enseignants, de leur côté, disent qu'ils éprouvent des difficultés à encadrer, à prendre en compte tous les enfants de la classe, à ne pas s'occuper spécifiquement de l'enfant handicapé quand l'AVS n'est pas là. Donc l'AVS, c'est une personne importante pour la scolarisation de l'enfant.
Je voudrais entendre Bénédicte Keil sur la question. Donc l'EPIAL, c'est cette nouvelle organisation qui a été pensée entre autres pour que les décisions d'affectation des accompagnants scolaires se fassent au plus près des besoins des élèves. Le PIAL a été lancé en 2019, il se généralise sur cette rentrée, sur cette année scolaire 2020-2021. Il y a des responsables associatifs qui, eux, dénoncent une réorganisation qui favoriserait finalement un jeu de chaises musicales dans lequel un élève pourrait voir ses heures réduire avec un accompagnant au bénéfice d'un autre élève. Vous êtes aussi une responsable associative. Votre réaction?
Les PIAL, c'est effectivement, ça peut être une bonne idée au départ, ça pouvait être une bonne idée au départ. Si dès le début, nous on a essayé d'intervenir pour que ce soit effectivement pensé dès le départ aussi en lien avec le médico-social. Mais après, c'est comme un bon outil, ça dépend de l'usage qu'on en a. Donc on peut effectivement maltraiter.
Incredible shit. I don't have a microphone. Yeah, because I've seen it.
Liberalizing your life, all the off-the-ass kids in the trap and skill. Live by the guns, make sure you die for the bills.
I run at you like a maniac with a pencil, fuck the trigger finger, because killing you simple. A psychopath going through a brain relapse. Somebody better hold him down because he's about to attack. They tell me to relax, to stop and take a breath. But the only way I'll get better is by witnessing your death. You can't stop me, motherfucker. Getting to you, ain't got no armor on my chest, but I'll still get through your crew. These drugs they hand me on, aren't affecting my brain, but the anger that I'm feeling is causing me pain. I'm coming for you, and there is nowhere to run. And when we meet face to face, you know it won't be no fun. Your end is coming near. Can't you feel it's close? Even if I die before you, you'll still be harassed by my ghost. I'll get you any way I can, whether you wake or asleep. Just wanna see you die before I'm fucking dead in these streets.
It's on now, each man a murder of life. All your fakes perpetrating, living lies in your life. All the off-the-ass kids in the trap, cleaning skills. Live by the gun and we'll make sure you die for the bills. It's on now, we committed murders of life. All your fakes perpetrating, living lies in your life. All the off-the-ass kids in the trap, cleaning skills. Live by the guns, we'll make sure you die for the bills.
I don't snatch chains, I go for throats. I don't steal trailers, I steal boats. I don't write tracks like no one knows. Construct some beats and shit and call it a poem. Raw, dirty, filthy, call me Rome. With the silencer pointed at your dome. Offering you the last call home. One of the sickens, clapping at chickens till the bits stop clicking. Toss it aside to grab the next seat out my ride. Always down for homicide when the feet collide. I got enough to provide for all the haters that duck and hide. The quickest on the slide, go make sure your two legs tied and stay inside. A bullet hitting your temple, plus battery should be elemental. Excuse me, keep me gentle, not consumed by thinking of ways to fuck up your dental. Record over an instrumental.
It's on now, we committed murders of life. All your fakes perpetrating, living lies in your life. All the off-the-ass kids in the trap, cleaning skills. Live by the gun and we'll make sure you die for the bills. It's on now, we committed murders of life. All your fakes perpetrating, living lies in your life. All the off-the-ass kids in the trap, cleaning skills. Live by the guns, we'll make sure you die for the bills. I'm a rapist with words, skillfully pillaging herds. Haters shake and they tom through the thick of their shirt. Perfected linguist with
I'm from the West End. I'm from the West End. Nigga, what you saying? I'm from the West End. I'm from the West End. Yo, I'm coming straight from the West End. Move from the drain to the West End. Watch how you talk when you walk through my hood, cause you know that my niggas be pressed in. Heavy artillery weapons, ain't really into the questions. I ain't condoning no violence, the youngins are wildin', they move kinda reckless. Got the keys, police say patting niggas. Say cheese, a familiar face tax a nigga. Safety, didn't even wanna slap the nigga, he made me. Ain't nobody telling me nothing. I knew from a youngin' that I be the one I had starting. Now all of these rappers is bugging. You live in the birds and you act like you came up from nothing. Shout out to my niggas on the plaza. Lane to connections outside Gaza. When I roll my backwood, better have rubber. Never leave the house without my iPhone charger. Wallahi, my Molly's will rob ya. Abdi Muhammad Mustafa. African man, that's my barber. Jamaican man, that's my shopper. Tell them the truth. Tell them the truth. These rappers, they lie in the booth. Lie in the booth. What's that got the realest? Just look at the proof. I'm living proof. The city's so litty cause we got the juice. We got the juice. So we got the juice. I'm from the West End. I'm from the West End. Nigga, what you saying? I'm from the West End. I'm from the West End. Nigga, what you saying? Good strip, jungle to the Rex, we deep. I can tell a West End nigga by the way you speak, Birds tripping loud in the hood, always lose they beaks. Know that shotty with bodies got dumped in the creek. Stop, freeze, boy, that mean looking for me. Her chick, I got that degree. What do you mean? Bitch, you don't know what I seen. Bitch, you ain't been on the scene. Record is clean. I'm too wavy. Maybe cause you may wanna take me. I got the sauce, gravy. More than they cannot replace me. Cause I'm from the West End. Bitch, nigga, better watch that top and find out you cop to the cops. So when it turn hot on your block. I'm from the West End. So they claim you a bad man, but y'all what a bad girl crew. Let me show you what a bad girl do. But you didn't know that I'm from the West End. I'm from the West End. Nigga, what you saying? I'm from the West End. I'm from the West End. Nigga, what you saying?
According to Google Maps, the other side, one of the sections of the neighborhood here is called West Bend. I wasn't aware of that. Thank you, DJ Random Shuffle Play. Maybe Skynet's not mad at me anymore.
Fucking Friday night, where the fuck is everybody? I just wanna party, like I won the lottery. Fucking Friday night, where the fuck is everybody? I just wanna party.
You ever apologize to like your cell phone or your computer so you can maybe just start working again?
Fucking Friday night, where the fuck is everybody? I just wanna party, like I won the lottery. Where you at? Hit me up, where the money, where the stacks, get this paper, get this cash. No, we here, with my niggas in the trash. Put it in, flip it quick, get it back. Add me up, with my niggas in the room. Cleaning up, sweeping up with a broom. Run it down, run it down, run it down. Double cup. So I got a couple racks today. Didn't think I made it, but I made it back today. Cashing out in the bank every day. Put in work, get paid. Where my niggas at? Fucking Friday night, where the fuck is everybody? I just wanna party, like I won the lottery. Fucking Friday night, where the fuck is everybody? I just wanna party, like I won the lottery. I just wanna party, like I won the lottery. I just wanna party, like I won the lottery. Fucking Friday night, where the fuck is everybody? I just wanna party, like I won the lottery. Just got off the plane, juice all in my veins, 6 buzzing my name, no one out these flames. Fucking Friday night, I ain't playing no games. I'm that West End chick that was raised in the lane. Yeah, you won't believe, pay up, just raise the fee. They call it, but they can't get a hold of me. If we talk Friday, BT, raise a bar for the scene. If the work ain't clean, don't come for me. They show up before, but they wanna come around. I'ma ride this way till the water run out. I'ma spark this place till the fire burn out. Just come up before, but I'm done now. Fucking Friday night, where the fuck is everybody? I just wanna party, like I won the lottery. Fucking Friday night. I just wanna party, like I won the lottery. I just wanna party, like I won the lottery.
do I make that say the fucking time out loud? Damn it. That'd be simpler, wouldn't it?
Be my guest.
I just don't want to say
Crowley, Helen, Will, Scotty. Oh, all the rest of you nice people who've written in to tell us how much you like the program. Thanks. I really appreciate hearing
we
from
started
you, and
writing
believe me,
letters.
I'll answer your letters just as quickly as I can.
What if we did them up on typewriters with
Well,
that
I'm
date
sure you know
on
what
them?
this is, and I want you to know it comes from the heart. Merry Christmas to you. God bless you. Now, next week, better who could win only by losing, because his life depended on it. Right. Join us, won't you? Yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Yours truly, Johnny Dollar, starring Bob Bailey, originates in Hollywood. It is written by Charles B. Smith and produced and directed by Jack Johnstone. Heard in our cast were Mary Jane Clough, Howard McNear, Harley G. Stanley Jones, Bill James, Lawrence Dobkin, and Richard Beale. Musical supervision is by Amerigo Marino. Be sure to join us next week, same time and station, for another exciting story of yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Dan Cumberly speaking.
You're listening to Chin Radio AM 1540, the voice of multicultural Toronto, bringing you the latest updates on COVID-19. Stay informed, stay safe, and stay tuned to Chin 1540.
Dragnet will do. I get a kick out of doing things today that...
Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to hear is true.
The
names have been changed to protect the innocent. Dragnet is brought to you by Chesterfield, made by Liggett and Myers. First major tobacco company to bring you a complete line of quality cigarettes.
Says everything these guys say is bullshit.
You're a detective sergeant. You're assigned the homicide detail. A young man walks into your office and tells you he has a problem. The way he talks, you know it's serious. Your job, listen.
Listen? Wait, what? Aren't you going to go get
Today, friends, you hear these three words everywhere. Chesterfield's for me. The Chesterfield you smoke today is the best cigarette ever made. Best for you,
is the one part
because Chesterfield gives you proof of highest quality, low nicotine.
Yeah,
the taste you want, the mildness you want.
We know what you're up to.
Chesterfield is best for you because it's tested and approved by 30 years of scientific tobacco research. Chesterfield is best for you because it has an established good record with smokers. Proven by test after test.
With your fancy
yes, friends, the Chesterfield you smoke today is the best cigarette ever made. For the taste you want, the mildness you want. Join the thousands now changing to Chesterfield. Always say, Chesterfield's for me.
Dragnet, the documented drama of an actual crime. For the next 30 minutes, in cooperation with the Los Angeles Police Department, you will travel step by step on the side of the law through an actual case transcribed from official police files. From beginning to end, from crime to punishment, Dragnet is the story of your police force in action.
I'll get at least 1 year in the state pen.
It was Wednesday, September 8th. It was cold in Los Angeles. We were working day watch out of homicide detail. My partner's Frank Smith. The boss is Captain Warren. My name's Friday. I was on my way back to the office from R9. It was 10:14 a.m. when I got to room 42. Homicide.
Pardon me, sir.
Yes, sir.
Are you a policeman?
Yes, sir, that's right. What can I do for you?
I want to talk to somebody. I'm not sure who, though.
Well, if you tell me what it's all about, I might be able to help you.
Well, I got to be sure it's the right person. You can understand that, can't you?
Yes, sir.
My name's Paul Marcus.
All right, Mr. Marcus, what is it you want to talk about?
Do you work in there in the homicide department?
That's right.
You know all about murders, huh?
You want to come into the office and talk?
No, I don't want to go in there. Is there someplace else we can go? I'd like to talk to you alone. This is kind of a personal thing.
All right, sir. Come on down the hall. Interrogation room.
Nobody else there?
No.
Well, that's good, because like I told you, this is a personal matter. I need your advice.
All right, sir, this way.
It's the first time I've ever been in the police department. I feel kind of funny just walking in and talking personal things to a stranger.
Yes, sir, I can understand. Go ahead. Mm-hmm. We'll sit down right there.
Thank you.
One option, maybe that's
Show 6:07, the 18th of February, and as Dave was telling you, yeah, we're keeping an eye on this storm that's moving through the U.S. Northeast. It's a little south of where it was tracking earlier this week, and that's a good thing. But for the western shores of Lake Ontario, it could be from the Toronto Islands right through to the Burlington, Hamilton area. It depends, throughout the day. It's going to start later this morning, lightly, and then some added squall activity, which can be very narrow. It can be like 1 kilometer of streamers. So let me take a road. Say Trafalgar Road to Dorval.
You're not gonna be able to see shit
in Oakville. Not that this is going to happen, but you can all of a sudden get like 8 centimeters, 10 centimeters, and then once you get past Dorval, it's not bad. So it's not a blanket storm like we saw on Monday night, Tuesday. That's something to keep an eye out today.
25 centimeters.
Public Health in Canada says it's monitoring reports of 2 COVID-19 variants.
Can't handle 2 inches.
Thought one to have originated in the United Kingdom, the other a surfer variant from California, combining to make one heavily mutated hybrid. I talked about this with Dr. Isaac Bogosh on Tuesday. I said, never mind these variants, doctor. What about recombinants? And he went, oh, yeah. It's,
tell us of F1
you want to put it in a human analogy. It's like daddy variant or a guy variant meets a lady variant, if I'm going to keep it, gender binary, meeting and reproducing. And all the bad things about the 2 variants can be super bad, or they can recombinate into something that's, less lethal. Public Health telling Global News, we are aware of the reports coming out of California about the combination of the 2 variants of the coronavirus, and we are closely monitoring the situation. Basically, they're doing what I do every day, what Heather does every day. Just sit and look at your device and see what the news is. We are working with international partners, including World Health Organization, to better understand these variants and their impact. Now, get out your pen. This is a mixing of the B117, the UK variant, and the B1429, first reported in California. It would be the first recorded recombination of COVID-19 of its kind. It could open the door to a vastly different wave of the pandemic because of the high rate of transmission from the UK. And now the California variant apparently has a mutation which allows it to be more resistant to antibodies. Again, it's not guaranteed that's what will happen, but it was first reported earlier this week by New Scientist magazine. And it's just something else to get maybe a little about. Certainly, we didn't need help yesterday with that. We had word from both Toronto and Peel medical officers of health as we prepare to move to a gray zone back into the color coordinated shutdown, if you will, on Monday. And yesterday, Eileen Davila, the top doctor in Toronto, said that the downward trend of daily COVID cases, we had another lower number yesterday, well below 1,000, isn't a case of luck. Dr. Davila said it's a result of a stay-at-home order, and she's more concerned now than ever.
The decline in cases of COVID-19 here in Toronto isn't a result of luck. They follow after the state of emergency and stay-at-home order. While there is a downward trend in many key indicators, warning lights are flashing too. As a public health physician, I've never been as concerned about the threat of COVID-19 to your health as I am now. Not at any other point in the pandemic.
Okay. So you watch that during the 6 o'clock news, and then you go have some dinner. You sounded very teacherly yesterday. Some would call it condescending, but she's speaking, I guess, as a scientist. She doesn't want Toronto to go back into the gray zone, which basically would mean nothing, except that retailers would be able to allow a limited number of people to actually enter their stores. The gyms wouldn't reopen. You still can't see a movie. You still can't eat inside a restaurant. There would still be limitations on gatherings. It would basically be what we're going through right now, what we have been going through since the lockdown began in January. She was joined yesterday by Peel's top doctor, Dr. Lawrence Lowe, who said if the province doesn't delay Peel's reopening, he'd like to see more rapid testing, more blitzes, and of course, those elusive paid sick days.
If we are to return to the provincial framework as of next week, then I ask that we finally address the issues facing our essential workforce. Blitzes, rapid testing, paid sick days, and protections for temporary and contract workers. We've said this for months, and that is the balance that we must target if we are going to return to the provincial framework as of next week. Simply put, more testing and isolation centers are no good if you can't take time off work to use them.
Dr. Lowe says we have to get this right. We have to hunker down to avoid that so-called third wave of COVID-19.
I know everyone is tired, but I also know we can't afford a third wave and a painful lockdown. So the next few weeks are crucial for our kids, for our businesses, for the success of our vaccination program, and for the most vulnerable among us, as they have always been. Help is on the way, vaccine, spring weather, and so we really need to make sure we get this right. And no matter what gets announced in the next few weeks, I ask our residents to continue doing the tremendous work they've been doing in holding the line, staying home as much as possible, and beating back COVID-19.
We'll do what we can, Doctor. We will do what we can. Procurement Minister Anita Anand said that our drop in international COVID vaccine rankings will start to reverse.
An army of niggas.
Kind of like a late season charge in professional sports, I guess, as we get more significant increases in vaccine deliveries over the next couple of months. Checking watch, tapping foot, going okay, okay. The expected climb following the deep drop in per capita vaccinations, we went from 10th place all the way down to 46th, which is, basically a standard saber season, correct?
Wait, what?
I mean, you're not wrong.
I'm not wrong, I know. And why am I being so cruel? What have you done to me lately?
I don't know, man. Like, you started off the day right, you gave me a beef patty.
I know, and now I'm just trashing your sabers, man. God knows. Yeah, Canada's rankings sank as we grappled with the slowdown in the Pfizer shipments because of the Belgian expansion. The Moderna shipments, because where are they, hit Canada harder than other countries because we didn't make the right deals. We made a deal with the devil with China, and they kind of did the hand-faked, put the hand against the hair thing. But she told the crowd at the Canadian Chamber of Commerce's annual economic summit, which was a virtual crowd, that the government believes it has put the faltering first phase of the vaccination program behind it. She was questioned by Parent Beatty, who is chair of the chamber, and she said, Mr. Beatty, I think we are going to see that we will move quite fast. These statistics that you have presented, the bad statistics, are going to change. She said, we are ahead of Australia, we are ahead of France, we're on par with Germany. All of those jurisdictions are our economic peers, and we will continue to work hard as we tend to do as we are Canadians. So we were supposed to get a shipment, I think, Tuesday. Then the snow happened in the United States and here. And that shipment, I think, is supposed to arrive today. This is through FedEx in Memphis, Tennessee. And I think UPS as well in Louisville, Kentucky. So we'll wait. The vaccines are in the air, as they say. Was Ted Cruz? You know Ted Cruz, he's got that big ugly beard now. He's the Texas dude who really, had that huge fight with Donald Trump during the Republican campaign back in 2016. Remember Trump calling his wife ugly and stuff like that? but Cruz knows where his bread is buttered, so he became an acolyte of the Trump administration. There were photos circulating yesterday purporting to show that Texas Senator Ted Cruz was on a flight to Cancun while the state of Texas was basically reduced to third world status because, you know, millions without electricity. They've had these record-breaking cold snaps. People don't have heat. 30 people have died. And someone posted, "Caught tonight, Ted Cruz fleeing to Cancun while his home state freezes with no running water nor any electricity." So the person who took this photo on the flight was also fleeing Texas, which has, no running water, no electricity. But to be fair, the person taking the picture probably isn't a state senator. They claim that they matched the mask, a ring, tennis shoes, and headphones, the past social media posts. These are little citizen journalists.
It also looks very similar. Same hair, same Polly Walnut's wings in the side. And
yeah, he's got the polys going on now on the side. You can't see the beard because he's got his mask on, which is one good thing. But I guess trying to shame the plane United 1020 departed for Cancun and landed just a couple hours later because it's Texas. It's not that far. So I don't know what you're supposed to do with this kind of thing except go, ooh, that's not me. I wish it was me. Cancun would be lovely this time of the year. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to come back in a moment. We've got to reconnect with our cybersecurity expert. We're getting into tax season. I think the e-file program opens up on Monday when you can start filing for your 2020 taxes. Yet CRA has locked out thousands of accounts amid an investigation that has maybe perhaps something to do with the dark web. For GuildhallWealth.com, it's 6:18. And to check a chopper traffic, once again, Kimberly Fowler.
Well, Mike, trouble's coming out of Barrie on the southbound 400 before Dunlop, just cleared away. We had a crash in the right lane. Still some delays from Bayfield, but that should even out pretty shortly. We just had a look at the 401 through Scarborough, heading westbound. We got a little bit of...
It's where he killed the girl yet?
You are listening to Dragnet, the authentic story of your police force in action. One of the biggest comedy hits of the year. That's how the movie critics are describing Bob Hope's latest Paramount picture, Casanova's Big Night. Like so many other millions of smokers, Bob and Audrey Dalton, who appears with him in the picture, say Chesterfields for me. First, Audrey Dalton.
I changed to Chesterfield king size because I think it's better than any other king.
But your heart... The Scotia ARIA retirement program can help, no matter where you're starting from.
Je pense que dans 3 ou 4 ans, on aurait été vraiment en très grande difficulté. Tous les médecins ont plus de 60 ans et dans quelques années, ils seront tous partis à la retraite. Donc, c'est des villes entières, des fois de 2-3 000 habitants qui se retrouvent sans médecin parce que s'il reste 1 ou 2 médecins, au bout de quelques années, ils tiennent plus et ils s'en vont, quoi.
C'est le docteur Stéphane Badia qui est à l'initiative de ce regroupement de médecins.
C'est une bombe à retardement parce que ce qu'on observe, c'est que les médecins, quand ils commencent à se préoccuper de ce problème, c'est à 1 ou 2 ans de partir à la retraite et c'est trop tard.
Lui s'en est inquiété il y a 10 ans. À l'époque, il s'associe avec 2 collègues des environs. Leur stratégie pour attirer de jeunes médecins, devenir maître de stage universitaire et accueillir ainsi pendant un semestre des étudiants en internat. Objectif, leur montrer qu'une autre médecine de campagne est possible.
Pour avoir des horaires décents, il faut être en équipe parce que sinon, nous, par exemple, à Méras, on est 6. Bon, les seniors travaillent plutôt le soir sur la tranche horaire de 5 à 8, quoi. Alors que les jeunes, ils travaillent en journée, ça leur permet de terminer plus tôt le soir, de s'occuper de leurs enfants. Et tout ça, c'est une organisation interne, mais mine de rien, c'est très important, quoi. Et surtout, donner accès aux soins à tous, quoi.
Toronto Contractors, Eamon here, founder and CEO of Reno. As a contractor for over 20 years, getting materials on site when they needed them was always unpredictable. So I created Reno Run, an online material store with same-day delivery. We're like Amazon, but created just for builders. Become a pro member and get unlimited deliveries for only $100 a month. Stop going to the store and boost your efficiency today. Get more done with Reno Run. Shop at renorun.ca now. I love building here in Newfoundland. Working in the cold, the ice. Where else would you want to be?
Rock Solid Builds. New series tonight at 10 on HGTV. You're listening to The Morning Show on Global News Radio 640 Toronto.
It is 6:21 on The Morning Show with Mike. I believe the e-file service where you can file for your 2020 taxes opens next Monday on the CRA website. A lot of Canadians might want to get in a little early because 2020 might be a very unusual tax year for them, especially if they've collected CERB, things like that. But a number of people, as many as 100,000 taxpayers, have been locked out of the CRA website.
Not legally.
Telling users that their email addresses have been removed from their accounts. They went to social media yesterday to report encountering error 021. Several said they spent hours. One guy I saw with a screen grab on his cell phone was into his 5th hour calling the CRA helpline to try to get their accounts unlocked. And we're starting to learn a little more about this now. The CRA is claiming that on the dark web they found a site that may have been selling the accounts, the emails, and possibly the passwords, who knows, to all of these CRA accounts. So out of judiciousness, they just locked these people out. Now they're going to have to struggle to contact the CRA to get their accounts reactivated. Scary stuff. I don't know. I mean, the CRA said it wasn't cyber attack, but that's what it sounds like to me. Somebody who would know joins us. As always, it's a pleasure to welcome our cybersecurity expert, CEO of Beauceron Security, David Shipley. David, good morning.
Good morning.
So how is it not a cyber attack if they find these addresses on the dark web?
Well, this goes back to how we define the word attack, and they feel like certain presidential sessions where people say, depends what the meaning of is. But I think what CRA did in this case was responded to an imminent threat. So they didn't have a successful attack in the sense of accounts were compromised and identity stolen from the CRA website. But based on the information they provided, they realized that there were passwords and email combinations in the wild that my guess is they were able to test against the password stored in their system to realize it would be potentially trivial to compromise those accounts. And remember, they faced significant criticism for the compromise of 45,000 some accounts not that long ago. And so in this case, they acted preemptively, which I do support. I do understand people's frustration and worry. But in this case, closing the barn door before the horses get out made a lot of sense.
All right. The irony here is, David, they were contacting people through email, and the CRA always makes it clear, we never contact you through email. I wonder how many people thought that that was a spam.
Probably quite a few. So, and given the number of CRA scam fishes out there, with good reason to be suspicious. So certainly one can never sort of armchair quarterback real-time incident response effectively. So we don't know how imminent or real the threat was. I'm going to err on the side of I'd rather them lock it down and feel some pain right now than have people's identity stolen and potentially thousands of dollars in bad loans or fraudulent transactions get tacked onto folks.
Absolutely. So it's going to take a while, apparently, for the My Accounts to be reinstated so that people can do their taxes online. I mean, CRA's never been known in good times for its speedy communication.
Well, yeah, it's definitely fixing the perfect storm. So an uptick in cyber attacks, a definite criminal interest in that area, people who are tired, exhausted, and facing probably the most complicated tax year in decades, and all of it coalescing at once. So sympathy to both to them and to the average person who might be affected by this, but a good reminder, making sure that you use unique passwords for every single site, using a password manager, and the one thing I would say with CRA, if they would get around to rolling out multi-factor authentication, they may have been able to do a less extreme response to this.
Okay, because I do remember setting up my account years ago, and I had to wait in the mail, I think, for 2 weeks for some sort of code to arrive. But you're right. Subsequent was no two-factor authentication to get in.
Exactly. So, and even making it so it's a voluntary opt-in program just to start with. If CRA, if you're listening, I volunteer. We can turn this on. And it's not that difficult to do to set up with services like Google or Microsoft Authenticator as an app on your phone. And that would be a significant barrier to criminals.
All right, we got another story. It's a local story. It's about a Mississauga man who is set to plead guilty to a federal charge, which U.S. investigators is tied to a major global effort by 3 North Korean cyber spies to steal from banks. What's this all about?
So remember all those times I told you that North Korea is funding its nuclear weapons program through cybercrime? Hitting up traditional banks, robbing cryptocurrencies. According to the UN, they've raked in somewhere between $1.2 and $2 billion, which is real money for building real missiles. Well, it turns out that some of our folks here in Canada helped them and helped them launder that money that may have made the world a more dangerous place. And that's something pretty startling for us all to take a look at.
All right, so do they? How do they recruit locals?
Well, I mean, a lot of this stuff happens on the dark web, and various groups who are involved in various forms of cybercrime will trade information, and they may or may not have realized who they were working for and what they were doing, but they created a network of folks that could mule the money digitally and turn stolen funds into laundered currency that can end up back in the hands of the North Korean regime.
Okay, so it's now in the hands of the U.S. Justice Department, I guess. The last story I want to talk about here is the battle that continues between Facebook, Google as well, but it deals with Australia, which kind of emboldens me somewhat, or makes me feel a little more secure, because the Australians, they'd be pretty feisty, but Facebook says it's what's it going to do? It's going to cut access in Australia to some of its services?
So it has actually banned all users in Australia from being able to share news stories from journalistic outlets. So you can no longer do that on Facebook. And this is part of a retaliatory measure for the Australian government pushing ahead with legislation to force the big tech giants, Google, Facebook, to pay media outlets and journalistic providers for sharing their content through their web platforms, which is long overdue. And little Australia is doing this, we should be following suit.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Google has done the threat to will shut down the entire search engine. They can do that with a stroke of the key in California?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they can block. They know exactly what Australian traffic looks like, and they can block access to it. And I would say, go right to the limit with them. Don't let them play chicken on this. You know what? Bing's still out there. Other search engines are out there. Someone will step in to fill this void. But the imbalance in power between these tech giants and duly elected governments, and the funneling of ad revenues from journalism to fund important things in our society into the pockets of these tech companies, it needs to get rebalanced. And it's only going to happen if we have the political courage to do it.
So you think Ottawa, if they can get the courage, can do the same thing that Canberra's been doing?
100%. I mean, there's absolutely no reason. And in fact, you know what? I'm starting to wonder if Facebook's move is not a net good for Australia. I mean, in terms of getting people maybe to go back and read the news from the websites themselves, seeing their advertising, funding that journalism, how is that a bad thing? And frankly, a little less political discussion on Facebook, I think we could all use a break from it.
I certainly can. David, as always, thank you. Stay well and take care.
You too. Take care.
All right, David Shipley, our cybersecurity expert, CEO of Boaster on Security. When we return, we're going to talk to our friend down at WICC, Bridgeport, Connecticut, longtime U.S. talk radio host Paul Pacelli. Holy goodness me, if you were on the Fox News website yesterday, you thought a president had died. No, it was Rush Limbaugh, the man who some claim saved AM radio, others say hastened its demise. We'll get Paul's take on that from a U.S. perspective when we return on the morning show, Global News Radio, 640 Toronto.
We're told to save for a rainy day, but why not save for a rainy decade? You worked hard for that money.
Wheelchair garden.
I want you to know how I appreciate it. You know, what you tried to do, I think was real fine. Thanks. I know what you mean. You didn't fool me a bit.
Bro. Huh? They got a section on wheelchair garden. Section of the page. More than most books.
The story you've just heard is true. The names were changed to protect the innocent. On October 4th, the hearing was held in Department 98, Superior Court, State of California, in and for the County of Los Angeles. In a moment, the results of that hearing. Now, here is our star, Jack Webb.
Thank you. Earlier, George Fenneman told you exactly why the Chesterfield you smoke today is the best cigarette ever made, and best for you. Now, the rest is up to you.
Get a carton or two for yourself. Smoke them and you'll say as we do, it's Chesterfields for me.
Paul Nelson Marcus was held to answer a charge of violation of Section 701 WIC, contributing to the delinquency of a minor. After due deliberation, he was placed on probation and delivered into the hands of a competent psychiatrist. Lorraine Jean Farrell was returned to the custody of her parents.
I'm gonna go bamboo and go. It's 10 feet high in a container.
You have just heard Dragnet, a series of authentic cases from official files. Technical advice comes from the Office of Chief of Police W.H. Parker, Los Angeles Police Department. Technical advisors Captain Jack Donahoe, Sergeant Marty Wynn, Sergeant Vance Frazier. Heard tonight were Ben Alexander, Herb Ellis. Script by John Robinson. Music by Walter Schumann. Hal Gibney speaking.
Small paved areas such
Watch
as
an entirely
basements and
different Dragnet
alleys.
case history each week on your local NBC television station.
Walled-in city
Please check your newspapers for the day and time. Chesterfield has brought you Dragnet, transcribed from Los Angeles.
Holy shit.
Filter tip smokers. This is it. L&M Filters. The one filter tip cigarette with plenty of good taste. Much more flavor. Much less nicotine. And effective filtration. Only L&M filters have the miracle filter tip containing alpha cellulose, the purest material for filtering cigarette smoke. Yes, this is it. As Bennett Cerf puts it, L&M filters are just what the doctor ordered. Buy L&M filters, the distinctive monogram cigarette. L&M filters, America's highest quality
They
and
didn't
best
put the
filter tip
like
cigarette.
a tax stamp or duty stamp.
Hear Frank Sinatra as Rocky Fortune following John Cameron Swayze and the news on the NBC radio network.
Oh shit, what's up? Okay. Be sure to
You're
attach all
listening to
baskets
Chin
with
Radio
strong
AM
hooks.
1540,
Check
the
that
voice of
chains
multicultural
are
Toronto,
sound.
bringing you the latest updates on COVID-19. Stay informed, stay safe, and stay tuned to Chin Radio AM 1540.
Now, Addison, the tablet thousands of physicians and dentists recommend for fast relief of pain of headache, neuritis, neuralgia, and heat. The liniment that's strong yet does not burn. Present Armis Brooks, starring Eve Arden. It's time once again for another comedy episode of Armis Brooks transcribed. But first, believe anything you like about what this or that way to relieve pain of headache, neuritis, or neuralgia will do for you. But there is one important fact you can't get away from, and that is thousands of users of Addison have been introduced to this remarkable product through their own physicians or dentists. These people know how incredibly fast and effectively Addison acts to relieve pain. Addison is like a doctor's prescription. That is, Addison contains not just one, but a combination of medically proven active ingredients in easy-to-take tablet form. Next time you suffer from the pain of a headache, neuritis, or neuralgia, don't wait for relief. Try Addison. You'll be delighted with these tablets' incredibly fast action. Try Addison on this guarantee. If the first few Addison tablets do not give you all the relief you want as fast as you want it, return the unused portion and your money will be refunded. All drug counters have Addison in handy boxes of 12 and 30 tablets and economical family-size bottles of 50 and 100. I'll repeat the name for you. Addison. A-N-A.
I was cutting my teeth in this business in the late 80s when he came around, long before I hosted Talk. I was still doing news and sports and things like that. And yeah, there is a perception, I say, by anybody in this business who is honest. You don't have to love the guy. You don't have to even like him. You can never have listened to him. But if you work in this business in the States, yes, he did a lot to essentially save the AM band. He absolutely did that, yes.
We have to go back to the beginning of Rush, the phenomena of Rush Limbaugh, with something that happened in the 1980s, the revocation of what was called the Fairness Doctrine. Can you explain to Canadians what the fairness doctrine was.
Yeah, there were two basic things, the fairness doctrine and the equal time provision. The fairness doctrine is very simply, it was a rule by the Federal Communications Commission, one of the two rules that were kind of relaxed. The fairness doctrine said, listen, if you are a broadcaster and you are presenting controversial issues, or maybe even regular everyday issues, you've got to make a fair effort to air both sides of the issue. And you're right, Mike, that was done away with in 1987, and a lot of broadcasters, the majority of which, there's still some holdouts, but the majority of which say, thank you, that no longer meant that if I had a 2-hour host who was doing conservative talk and debate, then I would have had to have a 2-hour host doing a liberal side of things, or I could have gotten challenged or fined or whatever. Yes, you're right. That did a lot, I should say, to opening the door for Rush and guys like him, guys and gals like him. Yes.
He was very close to the Bush family, starting with, George Sr. When did he really start making his mark, Paul, in U.S. politics? Would it have been the first midterms in '94 in Congress?
Yeah, really. I was working in the business when I first heard him in the late 80s, and I had heard people both in broadcasting and politics here in the States say, okay, it's a radio show, and it's on AM, and it's in the middays when, granted, most people are, in fact, working and can't listen to the radio. It's a novelty. This guy will have no impact. Wrong. He expanded into doing a television show for a few years. But yeah, even though the guy was on in the middle of the day, noon to 3 Eastern time, here in the States, the impact was amazing. And yet that 94, particularly 92, the 92 election, after that, when Mr. Clinton had won, and then the 94 midterms, where you had the first time that the U.S. House was taken over by Republicans in 40 years, people started to say, wow, this guy is really rallying the troops.
He certainly was. Did he become a parody of what he intended at first to be?
I don't know. I don't think so. Even up until the end, he was still very, very, very true, I thought, to what he wanted to be. Mike, on one of the radio discussion boards yesterday, I saw a line from a guy I don't know, but I picked it up, and I told him I was going to mention it because I thought it was so perfect. He said that, listen, he goes, Rush, for all of his career, from the beginning till near the end, he was the SNL. He was the Saturday Night Live for conservatives. And he came around at a time where there was no real electronic presence of conservatism in the U.S. And he came in with the big bombast, with the rock and roll bumpers, with the use of satire, all the things that make this business, as you and I know, great. And he got right in people's faces, and he didn't care.
Yeah, even his detractors had to admit yesterday, because, Paul, people look at what you do and what I do for a living, they think that's easy. 3 hours. And I think everyone has one talk show in them. One.
Yeah.
And Rush didn't have a lot of guests. He didn't really work with script. I know he had a really good producer in Bo, but what he did on a daily basis intellectually, never mind the mocking and some of the really extreme stuff he had to say, was incredible.
He laid out the best game plan for us in this business, Mike, and I'm sure you follow it, I follow it. Listen, whether there are great athletes, whether there are great musicians, great writers, people are inspired by them. They try to be their own person, but they take inspiration. And you and I both know that Rush taught a lot of hosts that you go in with what he used to call a big stack of stuff. You over-prepare. You'll never get to all the stuff you want to. I find myself doing that all the time and having to lop over shows day to day. But you talk about stuff that just really passionately moves you. And he illustrated that perfectly. You're right. He hardly ever had guests. And when he had somebody, it was either a sitting president or somebody in Congress. Other than that, yeah.
Are all the English stations
civil servants who have gone over to the protester side? Soldiers, says Mary Callahan, probably won't. She's a Myanmar scholar at the University of Washington who is currently in Yangon, and the author of Making Enemies, War and State Building in Burma.
There are certainly parts of the officer corps that have different dreams and visions for the future of the country, but they have not in 50 years been mobilized politically in any significant way. This is not a military that splits.
And that, says analyst Richard Horsey, makes the risk of a confrontation with protesters much higher.
I think once they've gone down this path, even if they realize now this was a bit of a mistake and it isn't going at all to plan, there is no way they will reverse it or that they can reverse it. It would be completely against type for a military strongman in Myanmar to back down and say, oops, made a mistake, and as you were.
That leaves very little space on either side for compromise. For NPR News, I'm Michael Sullivan in Chiang Rai.
Best perspective, because I'll tell you, Rush wouldn't have flown up here. Howard didn't last more than, I think, a year on our brother station here in Toronto. We have a very different tone up here. We also have a giant corporation run by the government, the CBC, that presents on radio. They're a juggernaut.
Yeah, that is, and that has always been an argument here in the States. Well, the FCC shouldn't allow Rush. Well, once you relaxed, that fairness doctrine and got it out of the way, little and medium market AM stations started to, make money and get listeners. So, yeah, it is what it is.
Paul, take care of yourself. Stay well. We'll talk soon.
I will, my friend. Thank you. Good to hear from you.
All right. That's Paul Pacelli from WICC Bridgeport, Connecticut. He hosts the Afternoon Drive program. We're here with the morning show in Toronto with Stafford and a check of the roads at 6:43. And chopper traffic once again, Kimberly Fallon.
Well, might getting a little.
She's in the studio.
Done on 401, getting busiest, maybe through Etobicoke, Islington, through to the 400 at the moment. Now, southbound on the Don Valley Parkway, bit of a delay over the 401 through to Windsor Drive, and eastbound on the Garter, seeing some bunching up from Park Lawn through to Park.
Well, but there's little chance of my dog being discovered in here, Miss Brooks. Mr. Stone rarely comes into my lab. The same goes for Mr. Conklin.
Oh, well, then maybe my cat can hide out here for the day.
Your cat?
Yeah, I'll let her out of the bag.
You had to make your ambition real. Plus, get up to $3,000 calls for nonviolent incidents, sending healthcare workers instead of police officers. That's next time on Here and Now.
Listen to NPR News at work, even if you're working in your slippers. Ask your smart speaker to play NPR and stay connected at home.
Good morning, I'm Steve Inskeep. In a horrifying week of weather, Brittany Memory had some relief. The North Carolina woman tells WEZT a tornado tore a hole in her house. Wind ripped away her bed sheets along with her terrier.
She was just bundled up in it. Once it was over, she was actually missing for a few hours.
Things got better. The dog Penny returned home safely. She'd been living in a Wizard of Oz nightmare, and your little dog too. But like Toto, she came home. It's Morning Edition.
Support for NPR comes from this. Please visit ontario.ca/reopening schools. Paid for by the Government of Ontario.
Vashon Insurance Group presents Did You Know?
Vashon Insurance has insurance companies which recognize your good driving for 10, 15, 20, and 25 years fault-free. How does your present company reward you for being accident-free? Call Vashon to see how they can save you money.
I'm Conrad Vashon, and we're your insurance broker. Vashon Insurance Group. Call 416-239-3373. That's 239-3373. You're listening to The Morning Show on Global News Radio 640 Toronto.
It is 6:45 on The Morning Show with Mike. You remember back a few months, like the first third of the pandemic, and they were all so nice with each other at Queen's Park. They were so nonpartisan, trying to get us through the first wave. And then the summer happened. And things got really bitchy yesterday, I got to tell you. And I don't mean that from a gender-centric point. Bitchy can be male, female, or whatever you want to pronoun. Let's start with Roman. York MPP, who was kicked out of caucus because a couple of weeks ago he kind of wrote an open letter to Premier Ford and the team running things down at Queen's Park, complaining about the lockdown, complaining about mental health, complaining about the cure being worse than the disease, et cetera, et cetera. And Premier Ford kicked him out of caucus, said we can't take that, we need to be united, we need to be on page, on message with Ontarians, because this is serious, and yes, it's destructive economically, but the disease is far more destructive. Anyway, Roman Baber, an independent now, suggested yesterday that he was going to bring in a private member's bill that would reduce the salary of every MPP at Queen's Park down to the level of a CERB recipient.
No, put them on welfare.
Canada Emergency Relief Benefit.
Let's be real.
They all make, over $100,000 a year, plus the perks of being in cabinet or premier yourself. But that was what he was talking about. And then I got to give Mr. Calendra, the House leader, the government House leader, some credit. Oh yeah, you're going to do that, are you?
Both get 50 cents.
I guess Mr. Calendra then proposed legislation that would reduce Roman Baber's salary to that of a CERB recipient, not the rest of the House, just the MPP, Mr. Roman. Well, he joined John Oakley yesterday to, I won't speak what Heather wrote here, to talk about legislators voting to reduce his salary during the pandemic after he introduced a similar motion. And here's Roman with John.
Yeah, in response to bringing my bill forward, the government leader, Paul Calandra, attempted to make light and joke of the situation and offered a motion for which he sought unanimous consent to reduce my pay. I did not speak to the motion. I did not think it was appropriate. And the legislature voted unanimously to cut my pay. Now, I understand from the speaker that that motion may be out of order, but what is more important here is that the government leader, Paul Calandra, decided to make light of the situation, decided to make light of the fact that 400,000 Ontarians remain unemployed from pre-pandemic levels. Decided to make light of the fact that people are destitute. They're losing their businesses. They're losing their life savings. They're borrowing more against their homes. And this is just absolutely shocking and inappropriate that at a time when so many Ontarians are suffering, that the government House leader, that this PC government, that the Doug Ford government, which is to make light out of the situation by bringing this mischievous, essentially, maneuver, is disrespectful to the House. It is disrespectful to the people of Ontario, and it's utterly disrespectful to the many thousands, to the hundreds of thousands of Ontarians that are suffering right now, economically and otherwise, because of this lockdown. Shame on them.
So what do you go from about $3,000 a week down to 500?
I used to practice law before I was elected. And I got into this business in order to serve the public. And I am very at peace with what I've done by way of the letter. And I'm very, I'm content with my work over the last 3 years. I was able to reopen partially Branson Hospital, advocate for a long-term care home in Humber River. I'll be all right. What matters to me right now is that we lift the lockdown, John, because I think the shadow pandemic is finally, since my letter, we've been talking about the shadow pandemic, arguably, and people are waking up to the fact that we're doing more harm than good. But most importantly, we're allowed to be speaking about this because there is a culture, there's this COVID dogma where we're not allowed to question public health officials, where we're not allowed to talk about the toll of the lockdown, about the catastrophe that's being imposed on us. We should be free to talk, even if we're wrong. As residents, as citizens in this democracy, and certainly as an MPP, representing my constituents in North York, we're allowed to be heard on what is the greatest, probably, event and most difficult time in our lives.
That's independent MPP Roman Baber, former member of the Conservative Caucus at Queen's Park, talking to our afternoon colleague John Oakley after the legislature turned tables on him and voted unanimously to reduce his salary to the level of a CERB recipient. As Roman pointed out, the speaker wouldn't allow that to happen. But the point, I think, was made. his suggestion as well. Why do we keep believing these medical officers of health? We had Lawrence Lowe from Peel and Dr. Davila yesterday in Toronto saying to the province, please do not take us out of lockdown into the gray zone, which is basically the same thing, except there'd be a little more retail allowed at a very reduced level, where there have been absolutely no really statistics that indicate that they add to the pandemic. It's still a bloody workplace issue. We hope it doesn't become a school issue now that the kids are back this week, but stats will start coming in on that. So he has a point there. I mean, when Dr. Davila held her news conference yesterday, and she was going on like, this is the most scared I've ever been since that little girl was watching TV in Poltergeist and turned to her parents and said, they're here. I'm paraphrasing, aren't I, Dave? I don't think Davila quite said that, but that was the impression I got on the 6 o'clock news last night, that I've never been more concerned about the future numbers that are only being predicted if certain things happen. So I understand Roman's point. I understand Roman's point completely. I don't go as far as to the anti-masking, the people who say we should just lift everything. We should do as Sweden does. They're still saying that. We should do as Sweden does. Well, we have now had 4 or 5 months of seeing what happened to Sweden when Sweden did what Sweden did. So I don't know why they continue with that specious argument. Anyway, away from Mr. Baber, away from COVID, let's get to some good old-fashioned cat fight. Yesterday,
I have orange seats here.
Andrea Horvath, who did we speak to her yesterday morning? I believe it was, or Tuesday. It was Tuesday when they first came back to Queen's Park.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Tuesday.
Yeah, we talked, and she said she was going to push to get that bill passed, introduced by her House Leader Peggy Sattler, that would guarantee sick days, et cetera, et cetera. Well, Ms. Horvath, because she is, quote, the opposition, kept, badgering, if you will. I want to be careful here in what I have to say to not, stigmatize the gender.
And you should
call it, she was doing her job as opposition leader, going after Ford again and again and again and again and again on paid sick days. Here was the result.
I've obviously listened to the chief medical officer from day one. Never wavered from that. I've listened to all the CEOs, and maybe if you talk to some of the CEOs of the hospitals, leader of the opposition, you might get some input. Rather than sitting there and constantly criticizing from day one, putting confusion with the public about all paid sick days, rather than sending inaccurate information out to the public and hurting the public, why don't you come and join us to support the people of Ontario for once, rather than just sit there and criticize and criticize. It's like listening to nails on a chalkboard, listening to you.
Whoa! Oh! It was like the bada bing when somebody would say something to Tony. Oh! Nails on a chalkboard. Immediately my Twitter feed, because I mostly follow the cops and highway patrol and stuff like that. I do have a few folks in media and politics. Well, this became a huge story yesterday. My God, Doug Ford using such sexist, misogynist language. Again, the kind of reputation that women receive when they get really aggressive in politics. And this is why women won't go into politics. And here's NDP leader Andrea Horvath with, I guess, a pretty classy response to Mr. Ford.
It's really not about me personally. It's about the fight that I have and that I bring here to Queen's Park on behalf of everyday families. The criticism as well as the proposals that we're bringing forward. At the end of the day, when the Premier doesn't like being questioned, doesn't like being criticized, he goes to the worst possible place. That's just who he is. But who I am is somebody who's going to come here every day and fight for the people of Ontario, regardless of the kind of mud that the Premier is going to sling.
You owe you an apology?
I think he owes the people of Ontario an apology. I mean, this kind of behavior from a Premier is wholly inappropriate, and and it's unfortunate that he doesn't see it that way.
Speaker Ted Arnott did slap the Premier's hand for not addressing the chair, the Speaker's chair. And you can't do that. You can't address another member directly. But anyway, it reminded me of Peter MacKay back in the day, a few years ago, down in Nova Scotia, when Alexa McDonough, who was head of the federal NDP, they were doing some sort of radio debate, and MacKay said something along the lines of, "Why don't you stick to your knitting?" Oh, became this huge. That's a term that's used in the Atlantic provinces for, like, mind your own business. It just happens to be stick to your knitting. I don't know. It became this huge gender issue, and I'll leave it on this note. And I'm not saying anything other than what I'm about to say based on my experience with women's voices. And yes, I agree that nails on a chalkboard probably. Oh, I know what you're saying, Doug. I know what you're getting at. But I've been in this business for 41 years. And I've answered many a phone call and answered many an email complaining about female announcers, female newscasters, female hosts.
Emails, so hit them up.
One of the biggest complaints, and I'm sure women on TV get the same thing about their wardrobe. One of the biggest complaints, I can't stand her voice.
Request money via
I can't stand her voice. I can't. Her voice drives me crazy. Her voice sounds sing-songy. She sounds like a valley girl. She's so screechy. Not to a 100%, but a majority of those complaints through telephone calls back in the old days and through current days through email from women, not from men. Unfortunately,
but
the men get far uglier in many occasions in their criticisms of women in broadcasting. But when it comes to something as I think is probably, who cares? It's supposed to be what they're saying, not how they say it. The complaints have come from other women. I know that had nothing to do with what happened at the park yesterday. It was an interesting reflection last night as I was continuing writing my memoirs in my head. We will take a break. We will get the latest from the roads. Kimberly will bring us up to date. Dave, as well. What's going on with the snow today? Where's it coming from? Where's it going to? On Global News Radio 640 Toronto.
I'm so over this. I don't even know anyone who's had COVID-19. And it's not like I'm at risk. We don't see many people, just a few neighbors and close friends. It's fine. We wear a mask and everything.
That was important.
Of the deadly COVID-19 virus. Until we all get the vaccine, stay home as much as possible. Visit ontario.ca/COVID-19 for more information. Paid for by the Government of Ontario.
Every day in Canada, 3,000 mortgages renew. Important announcement. If your mortgage renews in the next 90 days, contact butlermortgage.ca. 1.38% 5-year fixed rate at renewal. No gimmicks, no fees. It's the same mortgage as your bank. If you qualify, you save thousands. 1.38% 5-year fixed mortgage rate at butlermortgage.ca.
License number 12118, high ratio fixed rate APR 1.39%.
Between shoveling driveways, carrying giant bags of salt, and pulling toboggans up the hill all day, winter can be hard on your back. It's a good thing the 2020 Toyota RAV4 LE all-wheel drive with standard heated front seats has got your back. Lease one from $89 weekly at 3.99% APR for 48 months with $2,500 down. 197 in stock as of February 3rd, 2021, while supplies last. Visit shoptoyota.ca or shop safely at your local Ontario Toyota dealer.
Subway restaurants are pleased to announce our brand new valet service.
Really? Subway's got valet?
Well, no, but Subway's new curbside pickup is the next best thing. Right now, buy 2 footlongs and get 1 free when you order through the Subway app. Subway, eat fresh. Freshly made per order. Free sub of equal or lesser price. Extras additional. Participating shops. No additional discounts.
6:59 with a check of Chopper traffic. Kimberly Fowler.
Oh, my highway.
February.
Catherine Jette. Here's what's making news right now.
We need at least 2 more weeks in lockdown. That's the word from the medical officers of health in Toronto and Peel region.
We're like 3 days too late for that.
Will lead to more illness and death.
Well, somebody's right here, and I think the virus is going to be the one to be left.
Canada, after hinting approval could come any day now, as more infectious variants threaten to take over. Those snowbanks getting very high, and more snow is on the way. A winter weather travel advisory warns of up to 15 centimeters by tomorrow morning for Toronto and the West GTA.
Gas prices rise to highs not seen in a couple years.
That's crazy. That's all I got to say about that.
The winter storm battering Texas is getting some of the blame. The Maple Leafs avenging their Monday loss to the Senators. The Blue Jays set to start the season. See the crowd. Obey it might be checking out. Never second to none. So let's stay. To the rap.
Business at 26.
680 News Time, 7:01.
Traffic and weather together on the ones brought to you by Walmart. Jordan Kerr is airborne at Shopper 680. Good morning, Jordan.
Good morning, Paul. En route to check out a crash at Highway 7 in Martin Grove. A crash here at the intersection. Emergency crews are on scene, so drive carefully through there. Watch out for being diverted. On Finch, we still have construction. That's long-term construction. Anywhere between Signet on the west side of the 400 and Keel. It's single lane in multiple spots. And a little bit of extra construction this morning. Southbound North Finch at Finch down to a single lane with temporary work. Lots of flashing lights because of it, so it's just adding to the delays in the area. We're really heavy westbound Finch from Jane to Signet. From the 680 Traffic Center, here's Kyle Hawking.
Well, we've come through our first burst of volume this morning on the highways, and things are lightening up again. Eastbound 401 just slow from east of Dixon to the 400, mainly in the express, but not bad. Southbound DVP moving a little better, but still delays 401 to south of Lawrence. The eastbound Gardner slow from Parkside to east of Dufferin. When you donate to Walmart's 500 Spark Change campaign on now, Walmart will match customer donations to food banks Canada up to $820,000. Help keep Canadian families fed at Walmart. Next report at 7:11, and with the forecast, here's Jill Taylor.
A winter weather travel advisory for Toronto and the West End, 5 to 15 centimeters by Friday morning. Less than 5 centimeters, though, for North and East GTA. Right now, mostly cloudy, and will stay mostly cloudy through the morning. It begins, the snow gets going late morning into the afternoon. It's -7 at Pearson, -5 at 680 News. Today's guaranteed high, -3. 680 News Time, 7:02.
With the stay-at-home order in Toronto and Peel just days away from being lifted, top doctors in the regions are united in calling on the province to keep the lockdown in place as cases of COVID-19 variants continue to climb.
680's Kevin Meisner joins us live from Queen's Park, where the request is up for discussion. Kevin.
Yeah, Catherine, the latest COVID-19 data from the City of Toronto as well as Peel Region was given to the province last night. More is expected today. Minister of Health Christine Elliott says the final call on keeping Toronto and Peel in lockdown when the stay-at-home order expires on Monday will be made by the Chief Medical Officer of Health.
I can't really speculate at this point. That's going to be determined after a review of the evidence. So.
Now, it is unlikely that the province would reject the request from Toronto and Peel. Toronto Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Eileen Davila, says she's never been so worried as she is right now with rising cases of COVID-19 variants. She says now is not the time to reopen businesses, giving people essentially a reason to go out.
That's why the recommendations now are to try to help people to limit the opportunities that they have to mix or interact with others other than the people with whom they live.
Toronto has 56 confirmed variant cases. That's up from 33 a week ago. In York Region, meantime, Medical Officer of Health Dr. Kareem Kurji is actually asking the province to open his region into the red or control zone come Monday. He says businesses need to reopen. He argues that income is a key determinant of good health, along with eliminating the social isolation of continued lockdown. York Region, by contrast, has 49 confirmed variant cases. At Queen's Park, Kevin Meisner, 680 News.
680 News Time, 7:04. Getting Canadians vaccinated against COVID-19 would be a lot easier if we had more vaccines to choose from. So why hasn't Health Canada approved the Oxford AstraZeneca shot? Our Jamie Pulford joins us live with the latest on the stalled vaccine rollout amid growing concern over COVID-19 variants. Jamie.
Yeah, Paul, so far, over 1.3 million doses of COVID vaccine have been jabbed into Canadian arms. That's well behind counterparts like the U.S. and U.K. And the AstraZeneca vaccine is still waiting in the Health Canada approval queue, even after the agency suggested more than 2 weeks ago that approval could be imminent. Health Canada's chief medical advisor, Dr. Supriya Sharma, speaks to the delay.
There's often a bit of back and forth the terms of the labeling and the information on the label. So that's what we're doing right now. So as we're getting new information, certainly we're incorporating it into that review.
Now, this is a vaccine already approved by the UK and dozens of other countries and just given the green light by the World Health Organization. but there have been some questions about its effectiveness against the South African variant of the virus. This as more contagious strains threaten a third wave of the pandemic in this country. Canada has a deal for 20 million doses from AstraZeneca and another 500,000 through the global vaccine sharing program COVAX. The shot from Johnson & Johnson and Novavax also waiting on approval here. Reporting live, Jamie Pulper, 680 News.
680 News time, 7:06. So who needs a gym? Apparently you can burn more than 200 calories just by shoveling snow for 30 minutes. Laura Carney's here live to tell you about today's workout. Laura, yeah, and it's, great for the arms, great for the hamstrings. And just like the gym, we need our rest days, so we've had that. So now let's get ready for more snow. Winter weather travel advisory is in place for Toronto and the West GTA, calling for 5 to 15 centimeters of snow by tomorrow morning. Environment Canada saying the area is likely to be hardest hit. The downtown, southern Etobicoke, Mississauga, Milton, and Oakville. Our meteorologist Jill Taylor with the timeline for this system. But after about 11 this morning, 12 noon, we'll get into the periods of snow on and off. It will definitely affect the evening commute and possibly even the Friday morning commute. We'll still be dealing with some flurries. So the steadiest snowfall expected this evening. The advisory specifically mentioning routes like the 403, the 407, 427, QEW, and Gardner as the major roads likely to be most impacted. Drivers being warned to give themselves extra time to get around. And once we are done with this, even more snow could be on the way Sunday night. Reporting live, Laura Carney, 680 News.
680 News time, 7:07. Facebook has picked a fight with the government of Australia in what's being seen as a test case for the rest of the world. The social networks cut off all access to news content in a pushback against regulation that would force it to pay for news. Our Mike Epple reports from the 680 Business Center.
It's being seen as a warning for other countries, including Canada, considering new legislation to regulate social media. Facebook has blocked all of its news sharing on its Australian platform, pushing back against a proposed law that will force the company, along with Google and others, to pay Australian publishers for news content. Bloomberg News reports Facebook switched off the main news source for almost 1 in 5 Australians. Now, while Google had also previously threatened to block news content, the search giant announced Wednesday a content deal with News Corp, publisher of the Wall Street Journal and several Australian papers. Industry watchers say that Facebook's gambit may backfire, as legislators could argue it's dangerously under-regulated if it controls so much information. At the Business Center, I'm Mike Epple.
680 News time, 7:08. Filling the gas tank is costing drivers a little more this morning. 680's Carl Hansky's at a service station on the 400 where prices are at their highest in over a year. And he joins us live. Carl.
Yeah, the more reason to stay at home. Gas prices jumped 3 cents overnight to an average of $1.21 a liter for regular unleaded, and there's another 2-cent increase expected tomorrow.
I mean, that's just what they've been doing. It goes up.
But here at this gas station on Highway 400, commuters say price hikes during the pandemic are extra painful.
It sucks, honestly. I'm trying to save as much money as I can, and I have to spend more money than ever on gas.
Prices haven't been this high since early 2019. The winter storm down in Texas is being cited as part of the reason.
There always seems to be someone blamed somewhere. The prices just keep going up and nobody has any control over it.
It's estimated a third of U.S. oil production is offline now due to a power outage in the Lone Star State. Reporting live on Highway 400.
Only a third?
680 News time,
like
7:09.
almost the entire state without
As
electricity.
students return to classrooms, we have taken steps to help ensure schools have been made as safe as possible. Ontario's School Safety Plan has been developed in consultation with the Chief Medical Officer of Health. Further protections to prevent the spread of COVID-19 include strengthened masking requirements, enhanced cleaning, expanded targeted testing, and stricter student screening. To learn more about school health and safety measures, please visit ontario.ca/reopening schools. Paid for by the Government of Ontario.
Coming up in 60 seconds, traffic and weather together on the ones, including a collision at Highway 7 in Martin Grove and Woodbridge, causing delays.
680 News time, 7:10.
Right now, being there for each other has never been more important. And while your vehicle may not be top of mind, your local Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram dealer wants to do their part.
Buy a car,
which is why our showroom and service departments continue to remain open with one-on-one appointments that follow strict safety protocols.
And, trying's more important than succeeding.
What?
COVID testing will be offered at a half a dozen Toronto public schools this week. Big whoop. It's part of the mandate to test 5% of schools within boards weekly. The boards were directed by the education minister to test at least 2% of their students each week. So what do they have? According to Ryan Bird, they've got Grenoble Public, Lester P. Pearson Collegiate, Thorncliffe Park Public School. That's a heavily affected area for COVID. These centers will provide testing to students and staff as well as other nearby schools. It's aimed at asymptomatic kids who don't have any symptoms, to get a snapshot of the spread in the community and, feed Dr. Davila some more fear mongering. The private schools, they have to work with the education ministry when it comes to particular curricula, but they're pretty well on their own to make their other decisions. March break has been delayed controversially to April, and really the private schools, it was up to them. But the Toronto Star surveyed 10 private schools in Ontario. Are you going to align with the province, the public and Catholic schools, and delay your break until April the 12th? 8 of them, including some local ones, St. Mildred's in Oakville, Appleby College in Oakville, the prep school up in Aurora, St. Michael's, Branksome Hall, Upper Income College. They have all said that formal decision, they would unanimously say they would delay until April. Havergal College, the all-girl college school, said that they're going to have a 1-week break in March and a 1-week break in April.
You're joking, right?
I'm sorry, if I'm a parent paying $32,000 a year for my kid and you're giving them 2 weeks off in 2 straight months.
I want a partial refund for sure.
Yeah, a little bit of coin back in my pocket, please. I don't know. All right, for the parents out there, are you really truly expecting your kid? I think report cards are coming home in my house in a week or so. God, I hated this time of the year. Report cards. We used to, when we lived in an apartment on Kennedy Road in Scarborough, that's Kennedy with a double N. We had a locker room in the basement, and we had a locker. And I think when we were moving, my parents discovered like 6 of my report cards that I'd slid under the gate.
That's all you do. Just slid it. Oh, I guess you wouldn't have the key, right?
I'm like 12 by then, and my mom's going, "It says here in grade 2 you weren't trying very hard." Yes, Mom, I lacked the perseverance.
We've all done that.
We've all done that. You know you're going to get a bad report card.
Just hide it.
And you're sweating it for the week, so it's like, I don't know where it went. Yeah. I don't know. Well, now the parents are bracing for the report cards, and they should be bracing because there's a warning. One Toronto principal is warning parents, they're probably not going to be very good grades. Well, duh. The principal, Bill Koskianis of Morse Street Junior Public School in Leslieville, in a letter obtained by CTV, asking students and parents to keep an open mind when viewing their marks. The quote is, "If marks appear to be lower than what you were expecting, it may not be due to a lack of effort, more likely due to a loss of valuable in-class time and support. As school closures continue, we are all worried that despite our good intentions and efforts with online learning, the learning gaps for some of our students will continue to grow." One of the concerns, too, is literacy. And I don't understand why. If your kid, outside of, quote, classroom time, does nothing but play on an Xbox or PlayStation 5, do they not have a book they can read?
Video games, you're right.
I mean, different strokes for different folks, depending on, what the family can afford. But when I was a kid, I would have just been devouring the encyclopedia and the almanacs, because I just loved information.
Also, you didn't have access to the video games that we do now.
Oh, yeah. Well, I had Coleco Electronic Football, which were just basically a bunch of little LED lights that were supposed to have players. It wasn't very good.
No, of course not.
It wasn't Assassin's Creed.
No, but between like the Xbox, PlayStation, stuff on your phone, these kids have access to games constantly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I was in their shoes, I'd be playing games instead of reading a book, too.
Yeah. But it's really up to the parents, isn't it?
Yeah, but at some point, some parents just give up. And they're like, all right, you just go ahead. It keeps them quiet. They don't have to deal with them. I know my friends do that too with their little ones. Like this little girl, one little girl that their daughter, she's 4, and they just give up. She's not even in school yet, and they give.
Stay-at-home order until at least March 9th, and likely longer if local medical officers of health get their way. AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine has been approved by more than 50 countries and endorsed by the World Health Organization, but is yet to get the green light from Health Canada as this country's vaccine rollout sputters. And keep the shovel handy, anywhere from around 5 to 15 centimeters on the way, depending on where you live in the GTA, starting at 11 this morning, with Toronto and all points west under a winter weather travel advisory.
Time now for 680 Sports.
From Sportsnet 590 The Fan, Simon Bennett.
Well, Paul, the Maple Leafs trying to make Monday's game a distant memory, losing a 5-1 lead and falling 6-5 to Ottawa a couple of nights ago, but not the case last night. A defensive gem when it comes to Leafs hockey, and it was a 2-1 victory. Alex Kerfoot scoring the winner with about 10 minutes to go in the third period. They face the Sens again tonight, 7 o'clock on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet Ontario. Sportsnet Shinavidi and Ben Nicholson-Smith reporting the Blue Jays will start the season with home games in Dunedin, Florida, not at Rogers Center. Not a surprise given the pandemic. They are holding out hope that at some point border restrictions will be lifted so they can play games in Toronto. Australian Open this morning, Novak Djokovic moving out of the men's final, knocking out qualifier Aslan Karatsev. He had a great run, though, the qualifier did. It is Naomi Osaka moving out of the women's final. She beat Serena Williams last night. The Raptors face the Bucks for the second time in 3 nights. That goes at 8 o'clock in Milwaukee tonight. Sports 15 and 45 past every hour or anytime at sportsnet.ca/590.
680 News Time, 717.
Hi, I'm Sherry Tabb, co-founder of the Herzig Eye Institute. Thank you for the wonderful things you're saying and posting and sharing about our safety, our staff, and our surgeons. Our people inspire me. Let them inspire you. Free yourself from glasses, contact lenses.
Not just in the United States, but a lot of colleagues, a lot of people who have worked or work in this business on some of the local comment boards, and it was pretty ugly. I mean, one idiot posted, and I listened to Rush Limbaugh once when I was in the car in the States. I thought, okay, here's my chance to be a Midwesterner on a long drive and 3 hours of Rush Limbaugh. I could only do a half an hour. One, because it was boring. It was just getting too inside baseball on U.S. politics, and I wasn't interested. So, I mean, I respect the talent the guy had to do a 3-hour show by the seat of his pants every day. But, I mean, one idiot posted, well, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. What does that mean? He died of lung cancer. Anyway, here's some of the stuff that was posted on Twitter yesterday on the death of Rush Limbaugh at the age of 70 from lung cancer. One guy wrote, it's easy to make fun of Rush Limbaugh right now, but it's important to remember he also brought a lot of people a lot of joy by dying. Here's another one. The idea that you say artificially nice things about people after they die is weird. I've never understood that logic. Rush Limbaugh was a terrible person when he was alive. He made a living attacking the powerless. His death does not in any way change or redeem that. Feeling very sorry for the people of hell who now have to deal with Rush Limbaugh for the rest of eternity. Someone else wrote, God has canceled Rush Limbaugh. And it gets worse and it's worse and it's worse. Then, of course, on the Fox News side of things, it was like a sitting president or a former president had died. It was like wall-to-wall commercial-free coverage on Fox in the afternoon. I think CNN basically mentioned it in one of their tickers. Let's take another look at the roads. By the way, we put an interview request in to talk to that principal about the report cards. He's not doing interviews. So parents, remember that next time they call you for an in-class.
Teachers in the leader of the opposition in the Senate had this to say during his emotional 45-minute speach.
We are not gently sliding down a slippery slope. As international experts have warned, we are in a free fall.
Changes to the law would also open up MAID as an option to people with severe disabilities. And there's many advocates in that community who believe we shouldn't even be discussing the removal of MAID restrictions until proper supports are put in place.
MPs will decide next week whether to accept some or all of the Senate amendments. If any are rejected, senators could choose to defer to the House or amend the bill again, setting up a possible standoff between the upper and lower chambers, with next Friday's legal deadline looming. 680 News Time, 7:20.
Your life has taken a bit of a break, but your dental health shouldn't at all.
Pourquoi ça fait beaucoup de débats du poids à l'intention du gouvernement de réconcilier, de mener à bien la politique de réconciliation avec les peuples autochtones. Donc, ça pourrait rendre cette chose plus difficile parce que les juges bilingues d'origine autochtone ne sont pas quand même très nombreux.
En fait, ils sont bilingues, mais c'est pas nécessairement le français et l'anglais. Oui.
Voilà, c'est bien de souligner la nuance. Ils sont bilingues, mais ils maîtrisent leur langue autochtone et l'anglais et non pas forcément le français. Mais le premier ministre a tranché. Justin Trudeau a quand même été assez incisif au cours des dernières semaines là-dessus, à la Chambre des communes, en narguant le Parti conservateur parce qu'il refuse, lui, de s'engager à nommer des juges qui maîtrisent le français à la Cour suprême. Donc, il y a encore hier, M. Trudeau le fait en attaquant Erin O'Toole pour mettre à mal sa crédibilité parce que depuis quelque temps, il réclame son amour pour la langue française. Je pense que c'est vraiment sincère quand même, mais c'est une façon, c'est la petite politique qui entre en ligne de pause, mais ça va être obligatoire maintenant à partir de cette réforme qui sera déposée demain.
Autre dossier maintenant, Denis, qui a occupé beaucoup de temps à Ottawa cette semaine, le contrôle des armes à feu. Le gouvernement Trudeau qui pense avoir trouvé un juste équilibre, qui mise sur la bonne foi des propriétaires d'armes à feu qui sont maintenant prohibés pour qu'ils les remettent aux autorités canadiennes. Mais le gouvernement s'est attiré beaucoup de critiques de la part de ceux qui réclament des mesures de contrôle plus sévères, entre autres parce que le programme de rachat n'est pas obligatoire. On écoute, Joël Denis, la réaction de Nathalie Provost, une survivante de la tuerie de Polytechnique, qui est membre de Police se souvient, pour comprendre la nature des critiques, justement. Je vous ferai réagir après.
Pour nous, il ne respecte pas sa promesse électorale de l'automne 2019. Pour nous, c'est une promesse rompue. On avait donné notre appui parce qu'on s'inspirait des mesures qui avaient été prises en Nouvelle-Zélande. Et le projet de rachat volontaire.
Extended forecast. Here's Jill Taylor.
So we've got an area of low pressure moving up from the south. We're just getting sort of brushed by this, but it still means some snow for us, on and off snow, especially for the afternoon and evening. 5 to 10, possibly as much as 15 centimeters for Toronto and the West End because of some lake enhancement, especially around the Oakville area. And then north and northeast GTA, less than 5 centimeters. So a big variation with the snow totals by Friday morning. Guaranteed high, -3, -5 for the low. Flurries tomorrow should all end, though, by about 12 noon tomorrow, the high -1. Sun and cloud for Saturday, -1, and then Sunday up to +2. But we'll likely be dealing with some wet snow, 3 to 7 centimeters possible at this point, Sunday night, Monday morning. Right now, wind chill -12. It's -7 degrees, mostly cloudy at Pearson, -5 at 680 News. Today's guaranteed high, -3. And because Jill did not miss the weather guarantee yesterday, the jackpot climbs to $2,800.
Coming up at 7:30, pandemic reality check. Toronto Appeal residents bracing for a longer lockdown. Also, more shoveling in your future, and gas prices heading for highs not seen since 2019.
680 News Time, 7:24.
East Court Ford, the #1 retailer of Ford Canada for 2020, is your #1 destination for the toughest, smartest F-150. Check out the completely redesigned 2021 F-150 Super Crew 4-wheel drive, loaded with heated leather seats, navigation, and so much more. Get it at East Court Ford for only $95 plus HST weekly on a 24-month lease with just $2,000 freight down. Get the most for the least at East Court Ford at Shepherd and McAllen.
Inflation will start to grow. The price of gas as well. I mean, $1.17 now. We are seeing some recovery in the energy markets, and the price per barrel oil, I think, hit $60 a barrel for the first time since pre-pandemic. So we're going to start to see some squeeze on inflation from StatsCan numbers in a little while. Is that going to affect interest rates? Maybe. Drive-in movie theaters across the province. How many of them are there now? 5? They plan to open in 2 weeks.
For what reason?
It may be some time until you can pack into a crowded theater like a Cineplex. but there is the alternative. A number of drive-in theaters across the GTHA announced today they have plans to open as early as March. The number 5 drive-in up on 9th Line in Oakville, up in Newmarket, the Starlight in Hamilton, they're all owned by Premier Theaters, of announcing their intention to return to business in the coming weeks via Facebook. A post from the 5 says 2020 was a challenging year, but we managed to bring families and friends together to celebrate and capture great moments, etc., etc. We hope to do it in early March. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I'll tell you, I went to a drive-in. We used to have 1,000 of them around here, Shaggy. Mm-hmm. You couldn't turn your car into a driveway, and it's another drive-in in the GTA. We had the 7 and 7, we had the 400, and I remember going with a girlfriend at the time in the middle of February to see a movie, and they had these in-car heaters. Mm-hmm. They couldn't keep a hamster on a gerbil wheel. It's not a pleasant place to be.
Can't you put your own heat on?
I guess you can, but that kind of... And plus, a lot of people, once they turn their car on, their headlights automatically come on, which isn't conducive to a good driving experience, I find.
Not when you did. Do you remember what movie it was?
It was Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Was it? Oh, strong.
It was a science fiction double feature. Rocky Horror Picture Show and one of my favorite cult movies of all time, Phantom of the Paradise. Brian De Palma, 1974, Paul Williams.
I haven't seen that one.
It's a takeoff in Phantom of the Opera.
Okay.
Only it's about a rock star. So yeah, drive in March. I wish them the best, though. I wish them the best. Some movie theater owners say it's not worth the risk.
In government to raise the minimum wage nationwide to $15 per hour. Walmart this morning says it is moving forward with a wage hike for upwards of 400 and.
So can we say that's a wage?
Those weird hot dogs you get at Cineplex.
Yeah, but you can dunk it in the nacho cheese.
I know, the nacho. What is the point of being an exhibitor? Because you don't make money off showing the film. You make the money off this $7 of popcorn that cost you 25 cents. Mario Fortin, the manager of a couple of movie theaters in Montreal, says, I've got my fingers crossed, but it's going to take a miracle. If we can't sell refreshments, they're taking away a huge part of their business, the one that makes the most money for me. Guzzo Cinema's president, Vincenzo Guzzo, said the announcement came as a surprise as well. He anticipates many parents are going to avoid theaters. Because why? If you take your kid to see a Pixar film and they're hungry and there's nothing to feed them, they might still sell actually liquid refreshments, but they don't want people congregating around the snack bar. You know what those lineups are like.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, you could say, well, we can circumvent that and bring our own stuff in. A lot of people do that anyway. But again, they're not going to make much to open their snack bars. So this is one of those moves that government will make where someone just went, yeah, you know what, we'll put the movies in there as well. And, oh, yeah, the lineups at the snack bars, that's not good for COVID. There'll be no refreshments available. You know, I was like, welcome to Kelsey's.
Yeah.
What are your specials tonight? Oh, we don't have any food.
I know. Might as well just stay home and watch it on Disney Plus.
Actually, might not be a bad thing at Kelsey's. Anyway, did you see the Trump casino implode yesterday?
No, I did not.
Yeah, this is Atlantic City. I've been to Atlantic City about 5-6 times. It's a sad place. But once a premier resort or hotel, casino hotel, the Trump Plaza, which has been closed since all the Trump hotels went bankrupt. You know, the successful businessman that he was couldn't make money in a casino anyway. The Trump Plaza was imploded yesterday, and it became a political event where people were being charged $10 per person per car to park in a parking lot across the street to watch it come down. Even the mayor said that this isn't a political thing. This just happens to be a building that Trump hasn't owned. Carl Icahn owns it now, but it still had his name on it. So I guess for some people it was some sort of manifestation of the collapse of the Trump political empire as it came down on the Atlantic City boardwalk. It was so bad by the end, before they had to shut the doors when it went broke. It was the poorest performing casino in Atlantic City. The Trump Plaza took in as much money from gamblers in 8.5 months as the Borgata Hotel did every 2 weeks. Borgata is probably the only classy joint left in Atlantic City. It's not on the boardwalk. It's a little to the north. But the Trump Plaza at one time, that's where, the fights would happen. The heavyweight stuff. All the celebrities would go, and then it just turned into, it turned into what all his hotels turned into, like the Taj Mahal, just a symbol of vulgarity. We will take a break in a moment. We are going to talk about this anti-predatory lending strategy that's being called for as more and more Canadians during the pandemic have turned to the payday loan companies for cash at an extremely high interest rate. On the morning show with Mike, Global News Radio 640 Toronto.
The Government of Canada urges all Canadians to avoid all non-essential travel outside the country. If you travel, you should know that all air passengers are required to show a negative COVID-19 test result before boarding their flight to Canada, and that everyone entering Canada must quarantine for 14 days. Details at travel.gc.ca/travel-COVID. A message from the Government of Canada. Who doesn't like sliding down a hill on a snowy winter day? It's super fun if you're doing it in a toboggan, less so in your car. That's why right now you can lease a 2020 Toyota Highlander XLE all-wheel drive with advanced safety features included standard from $111 weekly at 2.99% APR for 48 months with $5,700 down. 382 in stock as of February 3rd, 2021, while supplies last. Visit shoptoyota.ca or shop safely at your local Ontario Toyota dealer.
I'm Wolfgang Klein, Portfolio Manager with Canaccord Genuity Wealth Management and host
up at Howard Park, taking that over to Parkside and get up to Bloor from there. From the 680 Traffic Center, Kyle Hawking. Steve, we can get a view of new problems on the westbound 401 on the ramp to northbound 400. The MTO is just spinning the camera for me here. See if there's something blocked on this ramp. Perhaps. I can't see it just yet, but I do see the heavy delay on the west 401 approaching that 400 ramp in the collectors. Yeah, it looks like something in the right lane. Just where it splits off to go between the north 400 and southbound onto Black Creek. It's right at that split, but it's affecting traffic heading for northbound 400. So delays on that west 401 ramp to north 400. Otherwise, a pretty light drive on the rest of our major routes and no other problems. Next report at 7:41, and with the forecast, here's Jill Taylor.
The periods of snow for us, especially for the afternoon and evening, snow totals will vary greatly across the GTA. Right now, it feels like -12. It's mostly cloudy, -7 degrees at Pearson, -5 and cloudy at 680 News. Today's guaranteed high, -3.
680 News Time, 7:33.
The decision now rests with the Ford government after the top doctors for Toronto and Peel region called for an extension of the stay-at-home order set to expire on Monday.
680's Kevin Meisner joins us live with the story from Queen's Park. Kevin.
Well, Paul, the province received the latest COVID-19 data from Toronto and Peel region late last night. More is expected to be delivered today. Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. David Williams, will then use that information to inform his decision on whether Toronto and Peel should remain in lockdown for at least 2 more weeks. Minister of Health Christine Elliott says at this point nothing has been decided yet.
That's something that's still up to discussion with Dr. Williams, the Public Health Measures Table, and the local medical officers of health in both Peel and Toronto.
The Toronto Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Eileen Davila, says she's never been so worried about the future as she is now with rising COVID-19 variants, standing at 56 confirmed in the city, up from 33 last week. Mayor John Tory telling Breakfast Television this morning that with schools now open, reopening businesses would be a huge risk.
She is saying, and I am saying, supporting her, that we should be making sure that the variants stay out of the schools and that we should get that right before we start opening up other things.
In York Region, meantime, Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Kareem Kurji, wants York to reopen on Monday in the red or control zone. York Region has 49 confirmed variant cases with 223 suspected cases, but the doctor there feels they are under control. At Queen's Park, Kevin Meisner, 680 News.
680 News Time, 7:34. It's been approved in more than 50 countries, including Britain. Both the European Union and the World Health Organization have authorized
$15 for every 100 you borrowed. But these companies seem to be pushing more and more of the loans of $10,000, even $15,000. And when you look at the interest rates, they're beyond what the criminal code describes as usurious.
Yeah.
because they're allowed to do it. They got some sort of exemption. To help explain all of this, Bob Murphy joins us. He is with the Toronto Acorn. Bob, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Mike.
Appreciate it. Now, Acorn represents lower-income Canadians. You're a group that is involved not only in housing issues, but issues like this.
We're involved in internet banking, housing, affordable housing, internet for all, affordable daycare, and we are located all in Canada. We have 140,000 members in Canada and 40,000 members in the GTA, and we're also located all over the world.
These predatory lenders are in existence, basically, Bob, because a lot of Canadians can't get banking services for a number of reasons. What would some of those reasons be that the banks don't want us?
We're fed up with the application.
The banks, it's not that necessarily the banks don't want your business. It's maybe you don't meet the criteria to get the short-term loans because of your financial situation. In short-term payday loans, we had a vote at City Hall in October. I know I was there for that vote, is that once you apply to a particular payday loan, you're registered there and you can go in there during every pay period and create a loan. It's quick, it's easy. You don't have to go through the whole monotony of dealing with banks. Once you get your information stated, then you can go in regularly. So you can get locked into very easily in the cycle of going there regular because they make it easy, and they make it easy there for a reason. And if we look in our low-income neighborhoods that we proved in October at City Hall, that all these payday loans are congregated in the low-income areas, and they're there for a reason, to prey on the most vulnerable income. It's very easy to get a payday loan.
Yeah, and haven't they moved a motion or even passed a motion, Bob, to restrict the number that can open?
Yes, I spoke at a dedication, I believe it was October 2nd, 2019. We had a unanimous vote from City Council. We put up in council and used York Southwestern as an example of all the payday loans. There was 3 payday loans operations within 4 blocks. Mm-hmm. They're congregated for an area to prey on the weak because individuals get desperate.
Yeah, and as you pointed out, Bob, once you get set up, once they confirm that you have a form of income, and it doesn't have to be work income, it can also be social support, correct?
That's correct. I myself am an Ontario disability recipient, and I can go in tomorrow and get a loan within 5 minutes, a payday loan, long as I have repetitive income. Also, I talked to a lot of community members all over the GTA and all over Ontario, but I don't only speak as an Ontario disability recipient, I speak as someone who has been caught in that cycle. So I've actually lived through that cycle. So I know what the despair it creates once you get locked in, going from payday lender to payday lender to payday lender. I was cycling 3.
Yeah, so you were juggling 3 different balls
every 2 weeks, and it was easy.
Now, I know the provincial government did intervene a few years ago, Bob. They set the interest. I mentioned $15 on $100. They also, I think, extended the repayment. They also said you can't carry more than 2 at a time at the same lender. But people are still getting into trouble. We had a news report this morning that a lot of Canadians, so countrywide, have had to turn to these payday loan outlets during the lockdown because they had to buy groceries.
Yes, but in the wording in that, we got to be very careful. Is that you can do what I did? Is you go just to 3 different payday lenders. They're separate companies. They're separate entities. They don't communicate with each other. I can go to 10 payday lenders in an afternoon, and they don't know who you're dealing with. So it's very easy. So it's not like you can go to one money mart and go down the street to another money mart. Even money mart doesn't communicate several years ago. So I can go to ABC lender, and then I can go to Minute lender, and then I can go to 1 Second lender. And so there's no communication. So the amount of loans is determined by the individuals depending on how desperate they are. And now, especially with individuals losing their income because of COVID, the rule number one is you've got to pay your rent. Yeah. So when you've got to pay your rent, then what you do is you have to you have lesser monies for food and nutrition. So when we can't pay our rent and when we can't have proper nutrition, it affects you mentally. It's the mental aspect of it. And at City Hall, sitting with city councilors, I sat in one councilor's office at City Hall, and he has told me that he's had a family member that experienced it and he's heard about it. We have a lot of family members and friends that are experiencing going through these type of issues, but they're not going to tell you about it. We're just simply not going to tell you about it because it's shameful that we got caught in this mess.
Yeah, I mean, even even when you go to a Money Mart or something like that, even the environment inside the store, it makes you like you've got the sense of shame. Now, Bob, what can be done with the banks? I mean, can the banks be told you've got to lend money? Because, I mean, they've got shareholders they've got to worry about. They're private, they're run federally under the bank. What can the banks be made to do so people don't have to turn to these lenders?
Well, the banks aren't interested in lower income because lower income have no money to spend. So when you have no money to spend, you can't, charge for all these different services. They're not interested in low income because there's no money in there in service charges because you simply don't have the funds to move monies around. With the payday lenders is they prey on the most vulnerable because the most vulnerable are in desperate situations.
And I'm not defending them, Bob, but they are providing a service for people who've got nowhere else to turn. So I guess that's where we got to focus, right?
Well, I think depending on which lens you're looking through, what we got to focus is on the rate. We're not denying that there's a need for it in any area. What we're saying is that lower the rates, make the rates livable, or a rate that is easier to a rate that's easier to pay. We're not saying eliminate them. We're saying that now they need to be licensed and they have to be regulated and where they're situated in their neighborhoods, and just lower the rates. But that's all we're asking for is just lower the rates. Stop gouging on the most vulnerable people, in our cities, in our country.
Yeah, for people who aren't familiar, the annual rate can be as high as 390%.
I'm sure there's some of them that are a little higher.
Probably than that. Bob, good luck with you and stay well.
Thank you very much and have a great day.
Thank you. That's Bob Murphy. He is with Toronto Acorn. Coming up, we'll talk to political commentator Sabrina Nanji about the nonsense going on at Queen's Park yesterday. Clashing over salaries, Ford rejecting an apology for what he had to say to Andrea.
Call our medical team today at 416.
Que les informations, ça représente moins de 4%.
And supply chain management to the tune of $14 billion, also warning maybe a bit of a slowdown in sales after a spike in what they saw during the latest pandemic quarter. The price for oil is climbing 39 cents, make that 41 cents, is $61.55 a barrel. So it's on the move again with the Texas energy outage. The price for gold up $8 at 17.80. The Canadian dollar up a fifth of a cent, 78.91 cents US. At the Business Center, I'm Micah.
When it comes to investing, it's time to consider the alternatives. Dynamic Funds sees diversification.
Safely at your nearest Subaru dealer. Magic trick number 29. Watch us make winter disappear. Well, maybe not disappear, but we could.
Look at your financial situation a simpler way. Learn to identify and fix your self-limiting thoughts and beliefs about money with proven investment strategies for the know-nothing investor. Join David Ash, author of Simple Wealth, this Saturday at 12 p.m. for the Experts Hour, right here on Global News Radio 640 Toronto. Proudly sponsored by Alpine Credits.
Back in my day, we walked in the snow, uphill, both ways. Nowadays, you kids whip around in your Jeeps with your 4x4 capability and your I can go anywhere attitudes.
What's your point, Grandpa?
Well, you gonna show me what this thing can do or what?
I ain't getting any younger.
Get up to $8,100 in discounts plus $2,500 in loyalty cash for select owners at the Jeep 4x4 winter event.
Oh, these things really can go anywhere.
See your Jeep dealer for details.
As students return to classrooms, we have taken steps to help ensure schools have been made as safe as possible. Ontario's School Safety Plan has been developed in consultation with the Chief Medical Officer of Health. Further protections to prevent the spread of COVID-19 include strengthened masking requirements, enhanced cleaning, expanded targeted testing, and stricter student screening. To learn more about school health and safety measures, please visit ontario.ca/reopening schools. Paid for by the Government of Ontario.
The new Samsung Galaxy S21 5G is now available at Freedom. Get it with select unlimited data plans and save up to $840. Visit freedommobile.ca for details. Conditions apply.
Lockdown in place beyond Monday due to concern over COVID-19 variants.
Where's the AstraZeneca vaccine? Health Canada had hinted approval of the COVID-19 shot could come any day. But officials say they're still waiting on more data to give the British jab the go-ahead, even after the World Health Organization gave it the thumbs up.
I think it was appropriate, and the legislature voted unanimously to cut my pay.
That is independent MPP Roman Weber, who yesterday was, I guess the term is hoist on his own petard, after he wanted to teach MPPs a lesson. And he moved a private members bill that would take their salaries from 6 figures down to a CERB recipient. Paul Calandra, the House Leader for the government, again, reversing fortunes on him and getting the House to unanimously recommend that Roman Weber's salary be taken down to the level of a CERB recipient. Mr. Weber, of course, kicked out of caucus because of that open letter he published criticizing the lockdown and basically the old line that the cure is worse than the disease. To talk about this story and also the nails on the chalkboard, Sabrina Nancy joins us, Ontario political commentator. How you been, Sabrina?
Hi, Mike. Doing good.
Yeah.
I was worried that, the first week back at the legislature was going to be rather uneventful and boring, but I've got to hand it to them. They made it pretty explosive for us.
Yeah, this kind of took me back to their very first sitting when nobody could get a word in.
Yeah, the MPPs, they've been raring to go. They just come back this week from, a winter recess. They haven't sat since last December. And so I think, what with where we're at in the pandemic response, MPPs were, not holding any punches back during question period and during debate in the House. We did see some, legislative shenanigans happening. That was Roman Weber. We heard trying to get all MPP salaries reduced. We're all in this together. He introduced a private members bill, which is a backbenchers bill. So, this is someone who was recently booted from the PC caucus. He used to be a PC backbencher. Now he sits as an independent because he's been outspoken against provincial lockdown. So he introduced this private members bill. These backbencher bills, they rarely have a chance of becoming law anyways. But the only way you can change an MPP salary is through